Okay, let's dive right in. Today, we are exploring this fascinating explainer that unpacks four radically different frameworks, all trying to answer the ultimate question about the fundamental nature of existence. Honestly, if you've ever found yourself wondering how the physical stuff of the universe actually connects to the thoughts bouncing around inside your head, well, you are definitely in the right place. We're going to look at some mind-bending concepts that will completely challenge everything you think you know.
But before we get into all the heavy physics and philosophy, just take a second and look at the room around you. Really ask yourself, is the world you're seeing right now actually real? Or is it just a constructed interface, hiding a much deeper, far more bizarre truth? Keep that question in the back of your mind as we go through this, because the answers we're about to explore might permanently change how you view your everyday life.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with number 1, Galileo's Great Divide, then move to reality as an illusion, consciousness in all matter, the entropy of existence, and finally, the future of reality. We're essentially mapping out an intellectual journey across the entire spectrum of reality to see exactly how modern thinkers are trying to fix a centuries-old mistake. Section 1, Galileo's Great Divide. So, the crucial point of origin for our modern confusion doesn't start in a modern lab, it starts centuries ago. As British philosopher Philip Goff points out, modern science was basically inaugurated on a fracture. Galileo deliberately split the world into two distinct domains. On one side, you have the quantitative, the math, the measurable stuff. That became the domain of hard science. On the other side, you have the qualitative, the soul, colors, tastes, human experience. That split created a massive gap, birthing what we now call the hard problem of consciousness. I mean, how does measurable physical matter actually create the subjective, rich feeling of being alive? For centuries, we've basically relied on two main camps to answer this, and frankly, both of them fall short. You've got dualism, which suggests a separate physical brain and a non-physical mind. But we don't see any unexplained magical activity in brain scans to support some ghost in the machine, right? Then you have materialism, which says everything is just physical matter. But, as Goff argues, objective physical facts completely fail to capture the subjective reality of human experience. Since these traditional frameworks have hit a dead end, we have to look to four radical new solutions that reimagine the universe from the ground up.
Section 2, reality as an illusion.
Let's swing all the way to the extreme subjective end of our spectrum with cognitive psychologist Donald Hoffman and his theory of conscious realism. Hoffman's core argument is wild. He says evolution didn't shape us to see the truth, it shaped us to survive. Think of your senses like a computer desktop. The icon for a folder on your screen doesn't literally look or act like the complex binary code inside your hard drive, right? It's just a simplified tool you use to interact with it. Well, Hoffman argues that space, time, and physical objects are exactly like those desktop icons. They evolved strictly for survival fitness, completely hiding the objective truth from us.
So if matter is just a desktop icon, what on earth is the hard drive? Under conscious realism, consciousness itself is fundamental. The objective world consists entirely of a vast network of interacting conscious agents. This literally flips the script. Brains don't produce consciousness, consciousness gives rise to brains. Space, time, and matter, they're essentially an evolutionary illusion rendered by our minds. In this view, there is absolutely no physical world independent of observation. Section 3, consciousness in all matter. Dialing it back just slightly from the idea that matter is a complete illusion, let's look at theories that try to blend mind and matter together into one package. Returning to Philip Goff, he proposes panpsychism. This is the idea that consciousness is a fundamental, built-in feature of the universe, exactly like mass or electrical charge. It suggests that even fundamental particles have a tiny, rudimentary spark of consciousness. Goff argues that it's the unimaginably complex arrangement of trillions of these conscious particles interacting in your brain that brings forth human-level awareness. It's a really clever way of accepting the reality of consciousness while still playing by the rules of empirical science. Now, crossing the aisle directly into physics, MIT physicist Max Tegmark treats consciousness not as some mystical illusion, but as a highly integrated state of physical matter. He coined the term perceptronium. Generalizing Giulio Tononi's integrated information framework, Tegmark suggests that just as water can be a solid, liquid, or gas, depending on how the molecules are arranged, matter can actually become conscious when its information processing reaches a specific, highly integrated state. To define this state, Tegmark proposes 5 mathematical principles. Information must be stored. It has to be integrated into a unified whole. It must be independent from its environment. It needs dynamics to process that information. And finally, it must have utility.
He actually uses these principles to tackle the quantum factorization problem. That's essentially trying to explain mathematically why the chaotic fuzzy quantum world resolves into the stable, solid objects that we perceive around us. It is a brilliant attempt to map our subjective experience directly onto quantum physics.
Section 4. The entropy of existence. Let's jump over to the extreme, objective end of our spectrum now, landing on theoretical physicist John Onamisi Obede's theory of entropicity, or TOE. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the stark juxtaposition. Hoffman places mind before matter. Remember, the moon is just an icon in your consciousness, but Obede places an entirely new kind of physical matter before mind. He argues the fundamental bedrock of reality isn't space-time or particles, and it is definitely not an illusion. It's a literal, objective entropy field. According to Obede, the moon is out there, evolving through entropy, completely independent of whether anyone is looking at it. In Obede's framework, entropy is way more than just a statistical measure of disorder. It's an actual, fundamental physical field driving all processes. And this brings us to his no-rush theorem. This theorem establishes an entropic time limit, meaning absolutely no physical process, not even quantum entanglement, can happen instantaneously. Nature simply cannot be rushed. It requires a minimum duration for entropy to transfer. So the flow of entropy literally acts as a universal speed governor, enforcing the arrow of time. This mechanic is called the entropic seesaw model, and it's huge because it offers a mechanical solution to the famous quantum measurement problem. In standard quantum physics, observation seems to magically force a particle to choose a state. Obede turns this dense quantum weirdness into a simple mechanical process. Systems entangle, entropy builds up, and once a specific mathematical threshold of entropy is crossed, reality definitively snaps into place. It's an objective collapse. The universe doesn't need your mind to look at it. It just needs enough entropy to be generated. So where does consciousness even fit into Obede's purely physical entropic universe? Well, rather than treating consciousness as fundamental like Hoffman or Goff do, Obede tries to explain the mind using physics. He introduces something called self-referential entropy, or SRE. He theorizes that awareness can be measured by how a physical system loops and processes information internally, compared to what it dissipates externally. In this view, your brain isn't a magical consciousness generator. No, it's a highly complex entropy process and organ, and consciousness is just an emergent property of that very specific physical loop. Section 5. The future of reality. Okay, we've covered a massive amount of ground today. Looking at this spectrum brilliantly illustrates our journey, giving you a clear mental map of how these four thinkers attempt to fix Galileo's error from entirely different angles. You have Hoffman, who erases the physical world entirely in favor of mind. Goff, who injects a tiny bit of mind into all physical matter. Tegmark, who mathematically defines mind as a state of matter. And Olabidi, who defines reality as an unyielding, objective, entropic field from which the mind emerges. But here is the absolutely crazy part. Despite their massive fundamental differences, there is one crucial point of shared consensus across the board. Space-time is doomed. Whether space and time are a mental construct rendered by your evolutionary interface, or they're a secondary phenomenon emerging from an underlying entropic field, all these frameworks agree that our baseline perception of reality is fundamentally flawed. We are literally just skimming the surface of a much, much deeper ocean. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a lingering question to chew on. The next time you look up at the night sky, or honestly, just look down at your own hands, ask yourself, are you simply an emergent property of a vast, unfeeling entropic field processing information? Or are you a fundamental node of consciousness, actively projecting the very stars you're looking at? Keep exploring, keep questioning everything, and I'll see you in the next one.